Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here is a quote I picked just for this episode. Are your socks getting tight? You'll figure it out. Mr. St. Clair, the one and only Daniel Good is back. Mentor, mentee, friend, brother, father, lover. Part two today. If you haven't heard episode 167 of the Culture Matters podcast, listen to that. Stop this, listen to that, come back, or don't listen to what I'm saying and listen to this and then listen to that. Episode 167. Daniel Good, thank you. Thanks for coming back. Thank you for coming back. Hold on. It's 2006 or 7 range, and you get the reins of the company somewhere between 6 and 9. You get the reins of the company, $2.5 million to double the first year. The year after that, up to 11 million. Find out that it's not just about the things, but it's about the people. That's where we left off. Why is it about the people?
So, Jay, first, I wanted to thank you for having me again today. Episode 1 was great. I mentioned to you in conversation, it took me back to that place, place that I don't get to visit often. But, it was so long ago. But when I get put back in that place, it was like yesterday. So thank you for allowing me to share with the Culture Matters audience and take me back to that place that's so special for me. When we left, you had asked me the question, what would I share? What would I share with people years from now? And it's actually very simple that, I spent my entire life thinking that, arriving was, establishing this list of things, whether it was trucks or trailers or equipment or just assets or that was how I arrived. And I'm going to tell you that we cut this thing off at around 2011. But even at 2011, my message when we stopped was it was for everybody, it's about the people. But even at 2011, I don't think I learned at that point. I still had not yet learned that it was about the people. I was still on the mission thinking it was about the things. I was still on the mission, trying to get the things and pay for the things and finance the things and lease the things. And, 2011, we had in the construction company, we had our biggest year ever. We had multiple government jobs at the time. We had an office in Northern Virginia, which was a much more stable, faster paced market than what we had been used to working in. And I was still on track to think it was about the stuff and the things. Coming out of that largest year ever, not only we had done more volume in 2011, in fiscal year 2011, than we had ever done. I had coming out of the recession, there was more people on the market than I had ever been used to. I mean, there was actually professionals on the market that were available to come to work. So at that time, I had the best team that I probably ever had. We were doing the most volume that we ever had. We were profitable. Looking back at it, it wasn't as profitable as what it should have been. And we were still getting the stuff. I was engaging in the loans and the leases, and we were acquiring the things. So, not to answer your question, it wasn't until much later,
wow,
that I actually realized. I hate to admit this, but it wasn't until the last few years that I realized that it was about the people and not the things.
What's come from that realization? Or go ahead, sorry.
No, well, I don't want to where we're going to end up there. We talked about, dove deep into, what got me to that place. So if it's okay, I'd like to just continue
Yeah,
with,
yeah, 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 yeah.
talking about this roller coaster. um, you know, I spent most of the year I talk about 11. I mentioned it here. I spent most of that year 11 away from home, staying in an apartment, working day and night on these government jobs. Um, no real personal life. We got those government jobs wrapped up. I was able to at least come back home more often. And 2012, I was actually able to, hadn't been dating, I hadn't been seeing anybody ever since um, things went sideways back in 2009. So I had been single for several years. In 2012, I actually met Blake's mother, summer of 2012, and it was great. Like we were having a blast. So I had just come back home really from working out of town day and night, like sometimes 6 and 7 days a week,
Wow.
to coming back home and meeting. We had mutual friends, but meeting Blake's mother, and we were having the time of our life. So I was like, wow, I was in, Jay, as we talked, I was in a really bad place. 2009, the recession, eight, coming out of that, to have the biggest year ever. We have a presence in Northern Virginia. We're doing government work now, consistent government work. It's going well. I come back home. I'm, I end up with, at the time, was a really good relationship. We were doing things that I hadn't done in years, and everything was really good. She had a son by a previous relationship, so now I've got a little boy in my life, and I wasn't, he was just in my life. I wasn't anything to him than one of mom's friends, but it was cool. We got together summer of 12, and I'll tell you, the next 6 months were some of the greatest 6 months I had felt like I had ever had. So good that Christmas of 12, um, I gave her a ring and we got engaged 6 months in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was that good. It was that good. So Christmas of 2012, gave her a ring, asked her to marry me. She said yes, and we spent so that was Christmas 12. We spent the next 9 months planning for a wedding. We got married in September. No, I'm sorry. Blake was born in September. We got married in November of 2013. So literally, well, 11 months later, a little over 10 months later, I guess, we got married. And remember this, it was 11/2 of 13. We got married. Beautiful wedding. Beautiful wedding. So that was the 1st of November, Christmas Day of that year. So just like 7 weeks later, I guess. I got a box for Christmas, and I took the paper off of it, and I opened the box, and it was wrote on the inside flap of the box, the inside of the lid. There was a book in the box, and on the inside of the lid, it said, "Dude, you're going to be a dad." And that
Whoa.
was my Christmas present in a box for 2013. So literally just 7 weeks after we had gotten married, I got a Christmas present that said she was pregnant. So Jay, I felt like at that point in time, the business in my mind was going well. We had just gotten married. I had a new little stepson. He was he was just a cool little dude. First child I'd ever had in my life.
Mm.
And now I just got a box, and I unwrapped the box, and I'm going to have a child of my own. I literally felt like I was at one of the highest places in my life that I maybe had ever been. It was cool. I mean, it was just great. she had a house that she had gotten rid of her house, and she had moved into my house, and the three of us were living in the house that I had, and now she's pregnant, and it just, man, that was a really, really, really good feeling. And we left out of there. We left out of 2013, I guess, and we got into early 2014, and like real quick, I'll say that the marriage it just started going sideways. Just it, the all the bliss was over, the excitement of planning the wedding was over, the wedding was over, Christmas was over, and now it's back to semi-normal life, but pregnant life. And she was trying to figure out in this house that she's only been in, for a few months, how she was going to. I guess at that point she had been in there about a year, but where we were going to put babies and where we were going to put this and where we were going to put that. And we started disagreeing like on the regular. It was the norm to disagree about everything. And that was early 2014, early to mid 2014. We were hot and heavy in disagreements about everything. I feel like the bigger her belly got, the more we would disagree. I mean, it was just constantly we were disagreeing about something so intensely. She's pregnant at the time. I didn't know it was my firstborn son, but it was my firstborn child. She's pregnant with my firstborn child, and she leaves and goes and stays with her mother. Like, that's how bad just the disagreeing got. Well, all that ended up doing was just making things more emotional, more intense. My new wife, that I haven't even been married to a year, that's pregnant with my firstborn son, or at the time, my firstborn child, has rolled out. She's staying at her mother's house. And, it took a stressful situation of new marriage, pregnancy, and just, it's hard. It's hard to work on problems when you run away from them. So I was telling you, during all that, I was trying to get back to that bliss stage. I was trying to get back to that spot of that, those 6 months before we got engaged. That was so great. I just knew we could get back there. So I'm putting so much emphasis in this relationship. I hate to admit it, I'm not even paying attention to what's going on in the company.
Mm.
Good thing the work we had plenty of profit in it, because I'm not even really, I'm engaged, but I'm not really engaged. I was showing up to do what I had to do, whether it was approve this or sign this or execute that, but I wasn't really engaged, because my priority was my new marriage. My priority was my son, that, my new wife, or my child. I keep saying son, but at the time I didn't know it was a son. My child that, my new wife is pregnant with. And I had just gotten, I hate to say this, I had gotten lost in that. I had gotten lost in my personal life. I had spent so much time and so much energy trying to fix it. Jay, I'm a fixer. We fix things. We build stuff. I just knew that I could say the right things, or I could pat her on the back in the right place, and it would fix everything. And now that I look back at it, the more that I tried to fix it, the worse it got. So we're moving through the year of 14. We get down. Well, at this point, it was probably spring. One of the contentious items that we had was she thought we needed a new house. Well, I had just remodeled my house before they moved in. I'd spent a lot of money remodeling my house. And I said, I think we need to be here. We need to stay here. We need to do this. And, maybe later we can get another house. And she had her heart set on that she thought the family needed another house, a bigger house. So that was one of the things that there was significant contention on. We were at odds about that. So my new wife, pregnant with my new child, she went out and ordered a new house to be built outside of what we were agreeing on.
Mm.
It just got worse from there. Blake was born September 3rd of 2014. And it's upsetting to say, but the morning that she went to the hospital, we weren't even staying in the same house. So, all my focus at that point was, I had never been here before, Jay. I'd never been here. I never had any other children. This was the first time. And I feel like it's out of control. And it's being ruined. I'm not saying that I ruined it, or I'm not saying that his mother was ruined, but I'm just saying the experience was being ruined because we couldn't get it together. Like, we just couldn't get it together. We couldn't agree. And the more we disagree, the more sideways it would go. The more that we would have a difference of opinion, the more sideways it would go. And really emotional time. New marriage, child on the way, it's getting close. And my new wife decides to go build a new house. And I mean, there wasn't any stopping it. It happened. So I could either get on board and support it, or we just be at odds even more. Well, I became so overwhelmed in my mind with fixing, repairing, getting my new marriage back to that 6-month bliss that, I mean, I changed. I wasn't paying really I wasn't paying any attention to what was going on in the company. And my main focus, I mean, back then I was still running, over 60 people.
Mm.
And still at that time, I was running the people. I was running them. I wasn't leading them. I was running the people. And, I'm going to tell you that a third of them, I couldn't even tell you their name because I wasn't even engaged. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't engaged. The only thing that mattered was signing the checks and making sure that there was payroll to pay the men. I wasn't paying attention to anything else because I was so overwhelmed with myself, my marriage, my new marriage that had went completely sideways. So he was born in September. We did bring him home from the hospital, and we attempted to go and live in the same house together with this new baby boy. It worked for a while. But during that time period, we had 2 houses. So every time we had a disagreement moving forward, I had another house that I could get invited to go to.
Holy.
I know, right? And the next year, Jay, the end of 14 and most of 15, it was rough because, I was trying to, now I've got a new baby boy at home. I don't really feel like it's my home. I'm kind of like living out of a suitcase. I've got like 2 little drawers in the dresser. And like twice a month, I end up back on the couch at the other house. We just can't get it together. And it was about a year later, a year when Blake turned 1, we kind of at that point just agreed that it wasn't working and that I would go back to the other house permanently. So now I've got a 1-year-old, a completely failed marriage. I'm in my feelings because I haven't really understood why yet. Like, because man, the first 6 months were so blissful, and then real life took over, and we really haven't got along since. And now we've got a 1-year-old little boy. He's with me half the time. So now I'm doing the single dad thing half the time. I still have this company. I'm in my feelings, like I'm just lost, Jay. I'm lost. I'm spending lots of time on the couch. So like lots of time on the couch. I went from like not really being involved to I was in my feelings and in my head so bad I wouldn't even go to the office. I mean, this went on for months. I had to end up, oh, this is embarrassing, but I had to end up hiring a gopher to bring the paperwork and the checks and anything that I needed to review or sign from the office in Northern Virginia, because at that time that's where accounting was happening. That's where estimating and project management. So anything that needed review or signature or execution, I hired a gopher, gave him a company truck, and he would physically drive the paperwork from that office to my door and knock on my door. And I'd show up at the front door in my pajamas because I couldn't get it together. It was a really, really bad time. And like, I was so lost. I've got a son. That's one. I'm feeding him. I'm changing him. I'm washing clothes. I'm doing the diaper thing. I've never done any of this stuff. Never even been around any of it. And I don't even really know why. Like, and I'm having a really hard time. It's end of 15, beginning of 16, I guess. Having a really hard time getting it together. Like, really hard time. I'm sitting at home. I'm doing paperwork at home. I'm reviewing bids at home. I'm signing checks at home. I'm going over daily reports at home. I'm not leaving the house. And I'm spending lots of time on the iPad. You know, I'm just, well, the things you do at home, I'm just not engaged. I'm not paying attention. And in the middle of all that, I look back at it now and I know what it was. I was looking for fulfillment. I was looking for a fix. I was looking for dopamine. I was looking for something just to make me feel better. I decided that our lead estimator, project manager, a gentleman that worked out of the Northern Virginia office, that him and I had toyed with it some. And I decided, now keep in mind, I've been removed. I mean, I'm talking to them on the phone, but I mean, sometimes they don't see me for months at a time. We decide we're going to spool up this concrete recycling company. Jay, I'm not even going to my own company. I'm not even visiting my own jobs. I'm not even going to my own office. And I decide that I'm going to start this concrete recycling division. And we're going to buy the equipment, rent the land, and hire the people. And now I look back at it, I'm like, why did you do that? Well, I guess, I mean, there was a need. I'll say that. There was a need. We could start this company. We could make this material. We could recycle this concrete. We could sell a lot of it to Bay Country. It made sense, but it didn't make sense for an owner that was sitting at home on a couch. What did I do? when the gopher brought, we decided what we were going to do and what we were going to buy, and the gopher brought the finance paperwork, and I signed it, and we did the deal. I'm still home on the couch. Because, well, one, I didn't know what I know now. Two, I was looking for something. I hate to say this, terrible reason to start another business, but I was looking for something to make me feel better. I was looking for that dopamine hit because I was in such a dark place. So we started a concrete recycling yard in Northern Virginia. It was successful at first. We bought a little equipment, and there was some debt. It wasn't crazy debt, and we started this thing mid 2015. The first year or so, 18 months, it went well. It went well for somebody that would spend most of their time on a couch. It went well. But you and I know you can't. I already had one business I wasn't paying attention to. Now I've gone and started another business I'm not paying attention to. It took several years. We came out of the gate with that thing. It was successful. We realized that the equipment that we bought wasn't big enough. We had a backlog of work. So then we went and bought more equipment. Well, like when you really decide to get into mobile crushing and you decide to get the real equipment that goes with it, I mean, everything you engage in is like another $500,000.
Wow.
So, yeah. So by the time like it was said and done, we had the stuff that we initially had bought and financed to start the business. And then we put that stuff in the woods and we went and got bigger stuff. And when it's all said and done, I'm going to tell you we had several $1,000,000 of equipment financed for this company that I started from at home on the couch because I was looking for a dopamine hit and it sounded like a good idea. Phew, what a mess. Got through that. Next year or so, I finally got off the couch, started trying to engage again. I found myself, when I finally got off the couch and got back out in society, I look back at it and I'm like, wow, how did I end up with any employees after all that? Because I remember time after time after time again, I would travel when I finally would leave home and I would travel from home to the office in Northern Virginia. I remember going in there with the lady that ran the office, the controller that ran the office. And I'd walk in there and I'd shut the door and sit in a chair and break right out crying about just everything. How I didn't know what I was doing, how my marriage went sideways, and that went on what seemed to be forever. It probably went on for a year. I would go to the office, close the door, and break right down crying because it was the pain, the hurt, the just not understanding what the heck went wrong. Whether remember it like it was yesterday. The superintendent, he called me in the evening to brief me on what was going on. We talk about the jobs for 10 minutes and my failing marriage for the next 50. So, Jay, I would go from sitting on the couch. It felt like a year. It probably wasn't a year, but I bet you it was close to a year. So I finally get back out in society, and then that's all I talk about is my failed marriage and this single dad journey. And, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out. And during that time, we never got divorced. I won't dive deep into this, but, I went and I consulted with an attorney. The attorney said, it was the first time I'd ever met him. He said, well, explain to me what you do. And I explained to him, and he said, well, how much volume do you do? And I explained to him. he said, I think you just need to go home and sit down and just be content for right now. and then, and I'm like, are you serious? Well, why? He said, because, it's going to cost you probably more than $100,000 to get an evaluation of everything that you do. He said, if you don't, I said, well, I don't have $100,000 of cash to have, appraisals and evaluations and all this stuff done to be able to, move forward with a divorce process. He said, well, I think you need to be real nice. And I think you need to go home and just be quiet and just don't rock the boat right now. And he suggested that because at the time, the level of government work that we had, all of those require bonding. All those government jobs require a bond program. Well, your bonding is based off of your assets and your liquidity and, your personal financial statement. And what is the business worth and what are you worth, et cetera, et cetera. So I called the bonding company and I said, look, my marriage has gone sideways and the last several personal financial statements you've had, or it wasn't several at that time, it was probably a couple. I said, we've got all these joint assets and together, you based a bonding program off of a personal financial statement with my new wife and myself. And we've got, at the time, I think we had 12 or $15 million in backlog of government bonded work. I said, what happens if I get divorced? And he said, the bonding company is going to pull away from you. He said, because the bonding company, the surety, doesn't know if it's going to be, an ignorant process, if it's going to go wild and crazy, or if it's going to be amicable. So what they're going to do is they're going to pull away from you until the dust settles and see at the end of the day, what's your personal financial statement look like when this is done? What do you have left? Well, I said, well, if it's worth, let's just say my personal financial statement is worth, several $1,000,000 now. And the bond program that we have is based off of that several $1,000,000. And, if this thing were to go really sour and now my personal financial statement is worth half of what it was, I'm not going to get the aggregate bond program that I have today. That would be limited by probably at least 50%. Well, I'm signed up for, like I said, probably knocking on $15 million worth of government work at that time. I've got the people, the infrastructure, the offices, like the whole shebang to do this work. I've signed the contracts, and the bonding company could have pulled out. Because some, the way the bonding works, some of them we're getting into, some of them we're getting out of, and then you've got the ones you're waiting on approval for, and they could have pulled away from me. So my bond agent said, I also am going to advise you to go home and be quiet and be real nice until you burn up this backlog of bonded work. So I had to go to Blake's mother and say, look, obviously it's clear our marriage is not going to work. And we're not going to be together. And we're not going to fix this. But we have to stay married, please. And she, that was a tough conversation because, giving her the benefit of the doubt, she said, you're asking me to basically be liable, because that's ultimately what it is. You're asking me to be liable and put some of them are yours and some of them are mine, but together they build a larger, stronger financial statement. And you're asking me to put my stuff at risk, my assets, my everything at risk, so you can continue this government contracting, and we're not even together. At least when we were together, you'd come home at nighttime and I would hear part of what's going on. Now you're asking me to just be okay put it at risk, sign this indemnification agreement once a year, and just let it be. And you basically are pledging everything that we have. Because, if one of those jobs goes sideways, that's why it's so dependent on your financial statement. Unless they're not going to extend you and a large aggregate program if you don't have the assets to back it up. Because ultimately, if that goes sideways, they're coming to get it. So she said, we're going to be split up, and you're going to continue to pledge our assets to do your work that I have no control over. And I said, if you're going to put it that way, I said, if you're going to put it like that, yes, please. And she said, fine. I don't want to do anything just because we don't get along. I don't want to do anything that'll hurt you. She said, fine. This isn't going to go on forever, but it can go on for right now. So that was good, because it could have been much, much, much worse than what it was. It could have been much worse than what it was. So, that's towards the end of 16. I'm doing the single dad thing. We're still married. Jay, what that gave us the ability to do by staying married, it gave us the opportunity, and it wasn't healthy, but it went on for several years. It gave us the opportunity to go, like, we weren't engaged really in the marriage. We weren't living together. We weren't wearing our rings. We weren't going out to dinner. We weren't participating in doing anything together. But what it gave us the opportunity is every 6 or 9 months, when the urge hit again to say, hey, we want to be married again. Let's see if it'll work. It's been 6 months. It's been 9 months. It's been 10 months. Let's go stick our toes in the water again. And we did that shit for, I'm going to tell you, we did it for another 2 or 3 years. Wow, that was unhealthy. Because every time we attempted to repair our marriage, only because we stayed married for business purposes. But because we were married, when the urge arose, I guess, we would try it again. And we did that several times. I think the last time, it's been several years now, that ship has sailed now, but we tried it again multiple times. And I'll say what that did for both of us, it was really unhealthy. Where we thought we were trying it again, or we thought we were doing it again for all the right reasons. It was like rebooting the computer all over again. All the healing that you had, all the progress that you had made, all the healing that you had gone through, just ripped the Band-Aid right back off again when we went there again. And keep in mind, during all that, in my marriage, out of my marriage, in my marriage, out of my marriage, I'm telling you, it wasn't as bad as it was at first. I'm still not paying attention. I'm still not leading the people. I'm here, probably, end of 16. I'm more present, like physically more present than I've been in years. Beginning of 17, I'm around. But every time we went there again, and every time we pulled that Band-Aid off again, it took me back to that place. It took me back to that emotional place where, pulled the Band-Aid off and it hurts real bad. I'm hurting for the next month or 6 weeks. What happens when you're hurting like that? You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to the solicitations. You're not paying attention to the P&L. You're not paying attention to what problems or issues your people are having. You're really not, there's no culture. You're not really I wasn't really leading. I was just in and out and kind of floating around and show up on the job and put the window down a little bit and wave because I just didn't want to talk. I didn't want to have those conversations. And I look back at it and I'm like, wow, you're so lucky anybody stayed with you through that period. You showed up on a job and you put the window down 6 inches and you waved a little bit. You put the window back up and drove off. Well, these people don't even know. I mean, they know who they work for, but you won't even talk to them because I was in my head with all this other stuff going. We got into 17. And I'm going to tell you, 17 probably at the time, I probably had the clearest head that I've had in a long time. And I looked around and I'm like, wow, I can't believe, like, really, I can't believe any of these people stayed here through this. The controller at the time, she was here, she listened, she was right there beside me, she listened to it all. The estimator, the lead estimator project manager that I had opened this concrete company with, he was here. He was running the estimating in the Northern Virginia office. We had a general superintendent on the outside who ran everything on the outside. So I went to the three of them in 17. It was late 17. And I apologized really for just everything that I felt like I had put them through. Because really, I mean, quite honestly, it was just a roller coaster shit show. And I'm going to tell you, they did with no leadership at the time, they did the best that they could. And I went to them and I said, look, I think I could be the problem here. I think I could be the problem. I've just had my head in my butt for several years, no real leadership. We're riding this at that time. I told her, I mean, it was kind of known. We talked about it. We were riding a $10 million roller coaster. And I said, a tripod has 3 legs. I said, there's 3 of you. I said, think about the 3 of you for a second as a tripod. I said, is it fair? And I asked them, I remember I took them out to lunch at Outback. We're sitting at the table. I said, is it fair to say that the 3 of you need each other like every leg of a tripod needs the other one beside it? And they were kind of looking at me silly, but they agreed. They agreed that, a tripod will not stand there without the leg beside it. Well, that's how I explain this. You've got the accounting leg. The accounting leg does the accounting, does the job costing, controls the money. You've got the estimating and project management leg that's building the relationships and bidding the jobs, running the jobs from the project management perspective. And then you've got the general superintendent that runs everything on the outside. And it sounded like to me that the 3 of them, I was going to hand them the reins, is what I told them. I'm going to hand you the reins because I think it's a possibility that this $10 million roller coaster that we're on is my fault. It's my fault. It's my lack of leading. It's my lack of just having my head up my rear end in all my personal life. And I thanked them for sticking by me and gave them the reins. And I gave them all a raise, significant raise, and said, here you go. I'm not leaving, but I'm going to go sit in the back of the bus because I think I'm the problem. And we came out of that meeting and I felt like everybody was in agreement and everybody was excited. And two of the people of the tripod that I had chosen that were in that, they really stepped up. They stepped up. And the other gentleman, he didn't step up so much. I think he did, he did what he had been doing, but he had his mind set on he wanted to be in business for himself ultimately. So now, I've just gone to them and basically said, I'm not going to be here and I'm not going to pay attention. And instead of all three of them stepping up, I think two of them stepped up and the other one didn't necessarily. So it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. I increased expenses by giving them all a raise, but we didn't really increase the volume. So I'm in the back of the bus. They're calling me if it's a diehard emergency. I know what's going on, but I really don't know what's going on when I had my finger on it and I was paying attention. And it's going okay. It's going okay. I mean, they're getting work, they're doing work, they're profitable. I go back home, sit on the couch a little bit. So not in the same mindset or the same, mind frame that I was back when my marriage was going sideways. But, I was really, Jay, just trying to figure it out. Just trying to figure out this dad thing, trying to just, my mom, even at that, not as maybe as much as she does now, but, my mom was leaning on me. So I don't want to tell you I felt lost, but I was just trying to figure me out, I guess, and what's going to make me happy. I've put management in place at Bay Country. I've got this concrete recycling company. It's going okay. I'd go back home and sit back on the couch and sit there with the iPad and I'm scrolling, just trying to figure out what is the next thing that's going to make me happy. And I find a dumpster company franchise opportunity that pops up. So I start vetting that and looking at that. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I vetted that for a while. And I took that to one of my other partners. And I said, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? This is pretty cool. Roll off dumpsters, smaller roll off dumpsters. The industry is kind of set on these large, ugly roll off dumpsters. These are more like residential roll off dumpsters. So what do you think about this? It's a franchise. It comes with an instruction booklet. You pay them the money. You take the instructions. You plug them and play them. And we don't have to figure all this stuff out. So we decided in 2018 we were going to jump into this dumpster franchise. Still, Jay, thinking. Still, it's about the stuff. Because keep in mind, I'm constantly, everything in my life's gone sideways. I'm looking to try to figure out what's going to make me happy. I've bought things, we finance things, I've set up new companies, we've bought crushers and screeners and support equipment. And now this new company's got several $1 million in debt. And I'm still really not happy. I give the reins of the construction company to 3 people that form the tripod, and I go home and sit on the couch and try to figure it out, and I'm still not happy. So then I decide we're going to go in the dumpster business. That'll make me happy. And we vetted it. We vetted it for several months. And we vetted it for so long, the franchise brand themselves, they're out of Canada. We vetted it for so long they actually flew down from Canada to meet us. And he told me afterwards, the CEO told me, he said, dude, we talked about this stuff for so long with you. My bullshit meter was up. Like, I didn't think you guys actually did what you said you did. So I thought I would fly down here and meet you, because we've been talking about this for a long time. So he flew down from Canada and saw what we did and what our businesses were, and met myself and met my partner, BJ. And he took us out to dinner that night in National Harbor up near DC, and we signed the contract. And so that was yet another business. That'll make me happy, Jay. More trucks, dumpsters. That'll make me happy. That's what I'm looking for. So now, I've got land development stuff and the construction company that I'm not engaged in, that I've got these people running. I've got this concrete company. Now I've got a dumpster company. I'm going to be happy now. Like, I'm going to be happy. This is what I need. We get started in the dumpster company. Things are going well. But I don't feel full. Like, I just don't feel full. I don't feel happy. Still doing the single dad thing half the time. I'm just not happy. Even Bay Country under the tripod management, it's going okay. It's not going great. It's not growing. It's not growing. And they're making decisions different than what I would. But I mean, it's okay. It allowed me to step away to try to figure out what was going to make me happy. So in the last, if we're at end of 2018 now, let's say beginning of 2019. In the last 4 years, I've opened up 2 new businesses looking for, this dopamine hit that's just this magic wand that's going to make me happy. And I've acquired all this stuff and all this debt, and I've signed and with all the stuff and all the debt comes some of the months cash flow is not good. Well, you can't make the payments. If somebody doesn't pay you, you can't pay the next person. It's that cycle. So now, we've acquired the additional debt. Now I'm in my personal account funding this stuff because I've spent millions of dollars to get the dopamine hit to find happiness. And all I've done is create more stress. That tripod, I will say, the tripod system in the construction company, although, it wasn't perfect, it did allow me to remove myself for, a couple years, let's say. A couple years, I was able to take that back seat in the bus. We had some big work, real big work. And some of those projects, they have a year or 18-month span. So, we had a large backlog. The cash was okay. If there was a problem, I was writing a check and giving them some money for a couple months, and I'd get it back, and it was okay. We didn't get the growth that I was expecting. What it did make me realize is I thought I was the problem. And Jay, where during this roller coaster of my marriage and having my first child and not really paying attention, that was my fault. That was my fault. My lack of leadership, my lack of being able to simultaneously deal with everything, mentally at the same time. When my personal life was going completely sideways, I just forgot that I had 65 employees. That was my fault. That was definitely my fault. But I gave them this raise. I set up the tripod. It allowed me to pull away, but it didn't really go anywhere. And I think what it did allow them to do it allowed them to create with me gone. And, what do we read, Jay? That with no vision, the people will perish.
Mm.
Well, when the visionary goes and sits in the back of the bus, what happens to the people? They perish. So by me disengaging, all it did was, and no vision, it enabled them to create their own vision. Their vision out of here.
Mm.
their vision on what the next pieces of their life look like. And I'm going to tell you, all of their visions did not include this place. And which, I mean, it wasn't things changed. We went like that for a few years. The controller that we had at the time, her parents had passed away. Her husband's parents had passed away. They had a dream of moving to the Carolinas. So in the middle of all this, she moved to the Carolinas and she worked remote. The other gentleman, he ultimately, during this time, went in business for himself. That just happened to be my partner in the crushing company.
Oh.
So my partner in the crushing company, I mean, he had a dream as well, and he wanted to. At this point, we realized that the crushing and recycling operation wasn't doing what we thought it was going to do. We had acquired millions of dollars in debt, and we're really just turning money over. We're turning money over. We're doing work. We're all over Maryland and Virginia. We're traveling. We're away from home. It's expensive equipment. It's expensive maintenance, and we're just turning money over. There's really not any extra left. So I think he had a vision that he wanted to do something on his own that wasn't concrete recycling. So while I was in the back of the bus, he started another company of his own. And then the other gentleman, he did okay. I don't think the biggest problem I had with him is during this time of me sitting in the back of the bus where I wasn't really paying attention, he did about $1 million in unapproved change orders.
Mm.
That it's like 5 years later and I'm still dealing with some of these unapproved change orders on some of these government jobs trying to get paid. I think, that was a lack of process. It was a lack of having someone actually overseeing what they were doing. Everybody needs some type of manager. Everybody needs some type of mentor. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody needs someone to go to. And where I thought putting those people in that tripod position was the right thing to do, me going MIA on them was not the right thing to do. Because, they were left to their own decisions. So I can't really sit here and criticize, well, you did this or you didn't do that, where I was wherever. When I look back at it, literally I'm dealing with, at this point, still like $600,000 in unapproved change orders. And it's years later. You know how hard it is to pull the documentation together and present factual information about why the United States government owes me this money.
Wow.
But yeah, so, was that their fault or was it my fault? I'm going to tell you, poor leadership. It was my fault. It was definitely my fault. So, controller moved away. Project management and estimating went in business for himself. And now, I've been out disengaged for a couple years. Now I'm back in. I'm back in. I've got my cape on my back, Jay, and I'm going to save the day. still not realizing, it's about the people, because like, I'm going to save the day. I put my cape on and I come back in here and, well, these change orders, this and this accounting, that, and we're bidding, and you need to listen to me. And you're not listening. I'm going to turn the volume up. I'm going to turn my volume up, Jay, so you'll listen to me. Because that's how, when somebody doesn't hear you, you just turn the volume up. Not realizing, again, just handling the people all incorrectly. I've got to give it to the people. Were they doing exactly everything they should have? No. But they did keep the doors open. Why I decided I was going to go take a hiatus. I mean, they did keep the doors open. They didn't have stock in the company. They didn't have ownership. So, I mean, and here I come after being gone or MIA for in and out for a real long time. Now I'm going to save the day. And at this point, we had done a bunch of work, unapproved change orders, some of the work we hadn't been paid for. When I got back in here and realized what was going on, it had been going okay. But at the time when I really got here and really started paying attention to things, we were owed like well over $1 million in work that hadn't been. It was like extra work. It was unapproved work. And I said, "Oh my God! Like, what are we going to do here?" We had one job that we did that the people didn't pay us. We had all these government unapproved change orders. I'm telling you, they had kept the doors open, but some pieces of it were sloppy. And when I came back in to save the day, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know what to do because some of the stuff wasn't fixable. And you definitely can't come in a day or a week or even a month and fix some of this stuff. It took 18 months or 2 years to make some of this mess. You don't fix it in a day. Simultaneously, keep in mind, I still feel like I did in 2017 when I assembled that tripod. It's just 2 years later, 3 years later, 2.5 years later, and I've got we're still doing the same volume. Now I just got a mess. I'm still at that same point though. Volume hasn't changed. I've got all these unapproved change orders. I've got all this work we haven't been paid for. I've got, a project manager estimator. My partner's got 1 foot, like 1.5 feet out the door. I've got a controller now that actually lives in the Carolinas, 6 hours away from here. And I still feel the same way I did in 17. And now I've got the concrete. Not only does Bay Country have all this stuff, I've got the concrete recycling company has got several $1 million in debt. They can't pay their bills. I've went and started a dumpster company because that was going to make me feel better. It was more from a dopamine hit and an ego thing. And I still feel the same way I did in 17, but with just more problems and more debt. And I said, "Oh my goodness, there has got to be somebody out there that can help me. There's got to be somebody out there." So I started advertising. I ended up going out and I got my hands on a consultant. And she came in here. I established a pretty good relationship with her. And she came in here and we made a list of everything in my life that was jacked up. From business to business, personal, my health, my mother, my relationships. I mean, I was still married at the time. I'm still married because we're still eating away this $15 million of government work. It went on for several years. And during the process, I had acquired some more. So I had made a list of all these things that I needed to accomplish. And she helped me put some ads out to try to get some real management in here. Because I was the management I had. They weren't here, but I was losing them. I was losing them. One guy's started a new LLC. You know, the ladies moved away. And the other guy, he's allowed $1 million in unapproved change orders. I've got a mess. Another mess. So she helped me put some ads out, and we got some people in here. And I'm like, you know, I need one good leader. One good leader. I need a CEO is what I need. Ended up getting a resume in. Man, it was impressive. This gentleman had done big construction and big vertical and big horizontal, and he had worked for all these big companies all over the country. I was like, this is what I need. A guy that's worked all over the country and has come back to his hometown roots and now just wants a job. So I interviewed him in the parking lot of a Wegmans grocery store because I didn't want to bring him in my office. Like, I needed to keep that out of the office because I didn't want everybody to know what I was doing. Interviewed him. He came. He came to the interview in a suit and a tie, to the interview on the back of the tailgate of my pickup truck. And it was a great meeting. Great meeting. That was fall, I think, fall of 2000. Yeah, I think fall of 2000. We dated for a while before we finally engaged. Got him in here, paid him more than I've ever paid anyone in my life.
Wow.
And it didn't work either. You know, did it not work because I couldn't afford him? Did it not work because things were already, you know, we were owed $1 million. It was everything. You know, he wasn't necessarily where he had a quite impressive resume. I don't think he was as knowledgeable in this trade and exactly what we do is what I was looking for. So, I mean, he gave it his best shot. You know, he came in here and he did what he could, and he wrote a bunch of letters and he tried to collect a bunch of money, and we went legal on some of this stuff. And I'm telling you, and if you look at what we were paying him, when I look back at it, I spent a lot on like this high salary. And he was here 6-9 months, something like that. And I didn't get, I'm going to tell you, Jay, I didn't get anything out of it. Nothing. Nothing. Other than because payroll comes every Friday, and because I will pay my people before I pay anything else, it took the cash that I had because cash was tight, and I spent cash in that salary that I should have been using to pay my bills with, because cash was already tight when all this money was owed to us. So in the middle of this, the controller that we had that was working from home, you know, it's already bad enough having a controller working remote that can't physically see the papers and see the tickets and engage with the people. That was already hard enough. I went to her and I said, you know, I think I need to get somebody back on site again. Let's look at maybe trying to make a transition over the next year. She said, okay. Well, like 90 days into the year, she found another job. And she came to me. She said, you know, you and I have been together a long time. She said, but I think I found an opportunity of a lifetime, and I think I need to take it. I said, well, we talked about a year. It's been 3 months. She said,
Wow.
she said, I think I need to take this. She said, I'll help you find somebody else. And she did. She did. We put some more ads out, and she helped me find somebody else, and we interviewed. And the new lady we got, come to find out, wasn't as qualified as what we thought. So now, Jay, to recap, I've got a project manager that has gone in business for himself, which is my partner at the concrete company. He's out of here. I've got a CEO that I'm paying too much money to, way too much money. All he can do is manage. He can't estimate. He can't read dirt plans. He doesn't know how water and sewer, and he understands conceptually, but he doesn't know how this stuff works. So I'm paying a major salary. Like, it's just going downhill fast. Controller's out. We call the new position we called senior accountant. That lady's in. It takes a few months to really realize if someone's a fit or not. After 3 months, like, that was going completely sideways. And after 6 months, she walked out and never came back again.
Wow.
And in the middle of all that, I was searching for a mentor. I'd had a consultant. The consultant that I had helped me get this CEO in the door. That ultimately wasn't a good fit. I got a bad CEO. I've got a bad senior accountant. We're owed $1 million in just either not just work that hasn't been paid or unapproved change orders. And things are going sideways quick. You know what this felt like? This felt like 2008 all over again. And we're not even in a recession. Like, cash is bad. Money's bad. It's just bad. And I think it was in the middle of all this, so it would have been spring of 2001. I sought out, I found, got connected with my mentor on through social. I was like, wow, I desperately needed some help. I desperately I've got so many problems. I'm owed all this money, and I hired a CEO, and that didn't go well. And I've got a senior accountant that doesn't understand construction, and that's not going well. And man, I need some help. I need to lean on somebody. I'm alone again. And the mentor that I have now, somebody had tagged him on something in social, and I sniffed him out, and I said, what the hell? It can't hurt. I've got to have somebody to lean on. I got to have somebody to confide in. I got to have somebody I can talk to that just understands what I'm going through. And I reached out. It was a cold reach out to my mentor, and he responded immediately. He said, let's get on a call and explain to me, what's going on with you. And this was spring of 2001.
21.
And we got, yes, sir. Oh, yeah, 2021. Sorry, 2021. Sorry. And we got on a call, and I went on to tell him everything. Like, let's just say the last 4 or 5 years that you and I went over here, I told him all of it. And I said, I don't really know what to do now. I've been here similar before, and I didn't know what to do. But, that was like 12 years ago. Like, I cannot believe I'm back here again. So he asked me a bunch of questions. He said, I'm going to ask you something, he said, and might be hard for you to trust a stranger. He said, but if you trust me, we can fix this. He said, we can fix this. He said, you'll have the best holidays that you've had in years. He said, but if you trust me, we can fix it. And Jay, I'm thinking all of a sudden, wow, this is great. I'm going to figure out how to get these change orders approved, and I'm going to figure out how to get the right accounting in here, and I'm going to figure all this stuff out. And I engaged with him after our meeting and our consultation, and I felt like I was interviewing him. But now that I look back at it, I know that we were interviewing each other. And ultimately, we must have been a good fit, because out of that conversation, he said, we can get this fixed. But we didn't dive into the details of how. He said, we have a call. We have 2 calls a week. He said, they're Tuesday and Wednesday. And he said, I'd like you on the call next week. He said, in the meantime, he said, we'll have some one-on-one conversations and we'll dig deeper. He said, but I just need you to trust me. And Jay, I thought, what the hell? I mean, what do I have to lose? I'm owed over $1 million. I'm going down this road that's really dark. I'm alone. I'm lonely. I'm still keeping mine. I'm still doing the single dad thing half the time. Like, what the hell? It can't get any worse. I said, okay. And in spring of 2021, I engaged with what you and I know now as the top contractor school mentorship group. And this isn't a plug for that organization. This is a genuine, honest conversation that the mentorship from that organization and the people in it have led me back to a place in my life that I never knew was possible. Because, I left that conversation, Jay, thinking that I'm going to get all the pieces. I'm going to get mentored and suggested of who to go to for legal, who's the strongest legal, and who's the strongest accounting, and how you're going to get this money back. And even after I engaged, I still thought that's where we're going. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out all these pieces. And after just a couple months, I realized that the problem here, the problem in the construction company, and I'm going to tell you, it's the problem in the construction company. It was the problem in the concrete company. It's the problem in everything that I was a part of that had people in it. If it was a paper company, if it was an investment company, that was different. But everything that I was part of that had people involved, it's the same problem. Me. And where I had sought out mentorship to fix the processes for change orders and the processes for accounting, and I need stronger solutions, and that wasn't the problem. I mean, are those problems? Yeah, but they weren't the problem. The foundation was the problem. We started talking about culture and leadership and core values. Man, those were discussions. Those were things that I had never talked about in any of these businesses.
Wow.
Ever. Your whole life, Jay, is built around this, the education and the understanding and the improvement of the culture matters. And I had never said the word in my businesses ever.
Wow.
And wonder why I can't grow. and wonder why it was going sideways. You know, if you were going to read the good book's going to tell you that you can't build anything on a foundation of sand because it's not stable. Everything in my life was built on sand. The concrete company, the construction company, my relationships, everything in my life was built on a horrible, terrible foundation. And it didn't just start this way. It had been my whole life. When you look back at it, you're like, well, I've done it forever like this. I've done it forever. How do you change the people around you? Just how do you change it all? It's like, this sounds so silly, but I had saw the light. How do I get these people to see the light? Well, Jay, you have to change the people, or you have to change the people. And immediately I tried to attempt, I can honestly tell you that I tried as I went down this road being mentored, and during my education, I learned more and it became more clear of what a horrible foundation everything in my life had. I tried to change them. I tried to change the people. I did. I tried. I pushed and I pulled and I said, please. And, you know, we shared podcasts and I shared YouTube clips. And we did, you know, culture building activities. And like, I really tried to change the people. But what I ended up doing is I had to change most of the people. Man, that hurt. Because, you know, Jay, even though you know you have to change the people, doesn't mean you don't care about them. You know, I can know that John Smith is no good for my organization. Doesn't mean I don't care about him. John Smith's been with me for 12 years, and I care about him. We partied together. He got in trouble. I was his first one that he called. Like, I've been there, but I've been there for them in a different capacity. Guys, it's time to level up. And listen, I want you to go where I'm going. Please come. But if you're not going to come, you're not going to hinder me from going. And Jay, during that evaluation process where I'm realizing that everything's wrong, my whole entire life has been about the stuff. When you look at the list, I've got like all this equipment. Like, we've got these organized lists, truck list, equipment list, trailer list. And then you've got an employee count. It didn't matter who was on the employee list. It was the total number of people. There's like 60-some people here. We're winning. All this stuff, we're winning. I started tearing it all down, Jay. I tore it all apart. Tore it apart. I sold the stuff. We started going through the employee list. And I spent the next year getting rid of anything that wasn't directly aligned.
Wow.
And that's the equipment, the trucks, and the people, personal and professional. And I'll tell you, we had to get that load off the top. I attempted in my mind to build this skyscraper business. We were going to crush concrete and do civil work and deliver dumpsters, and there's different legs, but we were building this skyscraper with no foundation. What's hard to shim that skyscraper up when you already got it up there. It's hard to build that foundation when it's already up there. Tear it down, Jay. Tear it down. And that's what I did. I tore it down. And I'll tell you, I can't sit here and tell you, I fixed it all. And it's like, we're in fairy tale mode right now, and the sun rises and the sun sets, and it's beautiful. But I'm going to tell you, we tore it down, and I've torn most of it apart. So the concrete partnership that I had in the concrete company, that partnership no longer exists. The concrete company, the assets have been sold, and I own the LLC name, and it's sitting up on a shelf. And we're not doing anything with that right now. So that partnership was dissolved. The construction company, you'll think this is interesting. 2/3 of the people are gone. And the revenue only changed by 1/3. 2/3 of the people are gone. And the revenue only decreased, by 1/3. So, but that's realigned. That's realigned. We got some new management in the door, and we tore it down. We tore it down to a place where I can still operate and we can still build that foundation, because I still want that skyscraper business. I want it. It's what I've wanted my whole life. But what I can clearly see here over the last 24 months or so is that you can't have it without the right foundation. So the construction company was torn down. The partnership for the concrete company was dissolved. And I've got my sights set on the dumpster company now. That's going to change too. Either I'm going to ultimately, what's happening is going to change. Whether I end up out or I end up owning the whole thing. Either one is fine. But that company, where we've done very well, it's not built on a solid foundation either. And when you own something on your own, it's much easier to change it or tear it apart. When you own something with a partner, easier said than done. But ultimately, the same thing will happen there, is we will realign and tear it down to build the correct foundation. And by doing so, if I have to own the whole thing, then that's what we'll do. And if we can't do that and I have to exit, we're going to do that too. But I cannot participate any longer in anything that doesn't have the proper foundation. And the proper foundation is what you and I ended episode 1 with. It's the people, and it's the right people, and it's how we treat those people, and it's how we put our message out there. It's the fact that you and I can have real conversations. It's the fact that, Sandra is the VP of this construction organization. She can have amazing conversations with real people and bring the people in, whether they're clients or employees. She's got a whole list of ladies that are literally breaking the door down around here to come in here to work for her, because we're doing it the right way this time. We're doing it the right way, not about the stuff. Quite honestly, I couldn't care less about the stuff, because what I've realized is the less stuff we have, and the less of the wrong people we have, the faster we actually go. What I just mentioned about the revenue change, that's a clear example right there. The more stuff I get rid of and the more the wrong people I get rid of, the faster we're able to go. The opportunities that are coming in here, Jay, the messages that we're putting out, the people that are listening. I've been advised that this was going to happen, but I don't know that I really believed that it was going to happen the way that it's happening. But the people that are watching, it's similar to when you make a post on social media and 10 people engage, but you put a story on social media and 250 people are watching it.
Wow.
They're watching. And the right ones come forward. The right clients are coming in the door. The right people are coming in the door. We've got people that are leaving their current professions to work here. Jay, this is construction. Whether, it's the concrete company that I put up on the shelf or the dumpster company or this civil construction company, all this stuff is hard. It's all hard. You're going to have people that don't pay you. You're going to have somebody that doesn't show up. You're going to have things that go sideways. You're going to have the best darn schedule that you could have, and it's going to rain for 3 days. There's things that are going to happen. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is the best hard I've ever engaged in. This is great. Great. I find myself pushing away the guy down the street and bringing closer the guy on the other end of the coast. I'm in Maryland. You're in Florida. Bill Ryman. I've got Brian Hess in Pennsylvania. I've got Nate Swink on the West Coast. I've got the Callaways on the West Coast. I literally have realigned from the guy down the street to the guys in Florida, to the guys on the West Coast. It's great. And I can't explain just the feeling that I have and how great this is, how great this change is. Just being able to share my son with this group of individuals, to be able to, this is great. So, Jay, just a little over 2 years ago, I sought out a mentor to help me with a disaster. In a little over 2 years, I tore it all apart. Am willing to tear it down further if I have to. Am willing to get rid of other things if I have to get aligned with the right people, with the right values, on the right mission, and do this thing properly. 3 years ago, I didn't, all this is like new information. And since I've changed it, man, it's all unbelievable what's happening around here. And it's unbelievable. There's still things that I'd like. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Jay, everything's perfect. Everything's perfect. And it's rainbows down here. But man, it's better than it's been in a long time. I'm content with being, with being a single dad. I don't have a partner. But I'm content. My relationship with Blake is stronger than it's ever been. He's getting recognized and awarded on the football field for his ability to lead.
Wow.
So he had a scrimmage here a couple weeks ago, and after the game, they took him over under the tree, and they said, I want to clap it up. And they start clapping, and the coach said, I want to recognize Blake Good for his ability and his leadership skills. Blake Good, we saw you on the football field. We saw you patting the guy on the back beside you. telling him that he can do it. That's true leadership.
Wow.
Jay, that's winning. My 9-year-old son is getting recognized for his leadership on the football field. That's a product of this environment. That's a product that that's a product of listening to Mr. J. But that's a product of listening to Mr. Brian. Like, he didn't just get that out of nowhere. Man, my life has changed so much since, quite honestly, I just slowed the whole thing down, realigned it, and got the right people.